Dense forest, ruthless terrain, risk at every step. This is land that nourishes those who are considered the biggest internal security threat to India and hidden far away from the eyes of genteel society. This forest breeds the next generation of Red Terror.
We are in the Saranda forest in the Orissa-Jharkhand border. Some 400 minor children have been recruited by the Naxals in the last 3 months for their children's wing. We've recorded on our hidden cameras how these children between the age group of 6 to 17 are being trained in guerrilla warfare.
150 kilometers from the Orissa border, deep into the Saranda forests of Jharkhand, 400 children are being turned into trained Maoist fighters. In this forest, Headlines Today came face to face with the child warriors of Red India.
Child warriors of Red India. In the jungles of Saranda, covered by the undergrowth and sal trees, are hidden the child soldiers. These child soldiers of Red India, the next generation Naxal fighters in the making. It is the latest Maoist strategy: induct more children into their cadres and then deploy them. First as spies, couriers, and later as their first line of defense, as shields against security forces during anti-Maoist operations. Today on Ground Zero, we bring you pictures that Headlines Today's Neha Dixit has brought back right from within the Naxals' lair. At great personal risk, Neha and our camera person Probir Biswas traveled deep into the tough Maoist territory to bring you this exclusive ground report.
RDX cable wires, country-made weapons, rifles, spears, bows and arrows. And right next to them, children of all age, sometimes struggling, at other times driven by passion to give their best, to fight the class enemies. Headlines Today travelled inside the dense Saranda forests to find out how these child warriors were being trained. We found out under what conditions these training camps run. We saw for ourselves how the next generation of Naxal fighters are being groomed to kill or be killed. 100 kilometers inside the jungle, far away from roads and civilization, the first traces of the presence of child warriors begin to appear.
अभी हम देख के आए वहाँ क्या नाम है वो सिलाई मशीन और सारा कुछ जला है और छप्पर पूरा जला दिया देखो वाला है उस सिलाई मशीन थोड़ी ना संगठन बना रहा और क्या वो तो अपना सारे चीज में कपड़ा सिलाई करता है खुद माओवादी को मारेगा तब ना संगठन रुकेगा सिलाई मशीन को जला देगा गीजर से क्रांतिकारी आंदोलन रुकेगा और क्या कोई बात नहीं.
As our crew keeps moving deeper into the jungle, the picture becomes clearer. Soon we see children fitted out into various roles, serving in the ranks of the dreaded People's Liberation Guerrilla Army, the PLGA. Dressed in school uniforms and sometimes herding cattle, these children also act as lookouts, passing on information about every new entrant into the Naxal-dominated jungle. We'd been developing our contacts for a long time, so Headlines Today was authorized to go into the Naxal lair. But before we actually went into the core area, we were told to leave our cameras behind. Most of the video footage and the proof of children in Naxal ranks have been filmed with hidden cameras at great personal risk. The PLGA had no idea that their activities were being recorded.
The CPI Maoist Politburo is a 14-member Supreme Council. But in the past 4 years, 6 of these 14 members have been neutralized, either killed or arrested. not just the Politburo, but across levels, the Naxals have been facing a huge manpower crunch. It was to counter this, to always have a ready supply of trained fighters to take up the fight, they began recruiting young and putting them in what they call Bal Sangatans, the children's wing of the Maoist army.
In February 2011, the Malkangiri collector R. Vinil Kishore and junior engineer Pabitra Mohan Manji were abducted by the Maoists. Pabitra Mohan was released after a couple of days, but the collector hostage crisis dragged on for 9 days. Suspension of security operations was a price that India had to pay in exchange for the Malkangiri collector's well-being. The suspension of combing operations gave the Maoists the opportunity to regroup and even to gain lost ground. One of the fallouts of the security forces being reined back was the recruitment drive to build up the children's wing, Bal Sangam, sometimes called the Bal Sangatan. Most of these children are from the tribal communities of Santals, Mundas and Orauns. They are in the age group of 6 to 16. While some join to fight police brutality, some join out of pressure that if they don't join, their families will be eliminated.
कैसे आई तुम इधर संगठन के साथ?
हमारे घर पर आग लगाती थी तो उसके बाद वो पिताजी को उठा कर ले गए थे। फिर संगठन यहाँ पर था तो वो जुड़ गए।
अच्छा, अभी 2-3 महीने में काफ़ी बच्चे हैं ना? कितने बच्चे हैं?
3-4 बार 30-40 बच्चे।
अच्छा, और शंकर कैसे आया था?
हर परिवार से एक सदस्य को भेजना ज़रूरी होता है। किसी तरह से
मगर वो शंकर के उधर वाले गांव में तो उधर माओवाद तो नहीं चलता, उधर तो सलवाजी दम के ज़्यादा लोग हैं।
हर परिवार से एक सदस्य का आना ज़रूरी होता है, तो अगर वो उनको नहीं भेजते तो यहाँ उसके परिवार को मिलेगा।
They are being trained in military warfare that includes arms training, making and planting landmines and bombs, and gathering intelligence. Neha, Dixit for Headlines Today.
The Bal Sangathan is the lowest in the ranks of the People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. The children, some as young as 6 up to the age of 16, are all trained in fulfilling different roles. My colleague Neha Dixit spent days inside a Maoist camp finding out how these young boys and girls are converted into being merciless killing machines. She found out how there is a defined role for every child of every age group.
The new entrants in the Bal Sangathan are first used as spies and couriers. They roam around in the neighboring villages, collecting information about meetings organized by local politicians. Apart from that, they're trained in basic drill and armed with 303 rifles.
Teenagers in rag shorts and shirts move around with bows, arrows and guns. While serving as the child cadre for the Maoists, they lose the time for any vocational training. This creates a problem for them in the future.
Children above 12 years of age are deployed as fighters to engage in hostilities against the security forces, to make and plant landmines and bombs, and to gather intelligence for sentry duty. After the initial training, the alarms are formed. The alarms have 8 to 10 guerrilla warriors and are trained in using landmine and surprise attack. Those who hit the age of 16 are absorbed in the People's Liberation Guerrilla Army. From then on, they're sent to various wings like the Communication Wing or the Military Intelligence Wing called the People's Security Services. Rigorous physical training combined with learning survival tactics in the jungle are given prime importance. Learning how to scare away wild animals like elephants, for whom Saranda Forest, a home range, is also necessary for survival. Drills to build temporary shelters and survive during combing operations are given utmost importance. Apart from training in guerrilla warfare, they are also indoctrinated with the Maoist ideology with the help of Maoist literature translated from English to various tribal languages. Young girls and the women cadre equally participate in the same drills. They too are trained well enough to lead operations from the front. While the Maoists look forward to expanding their base force, clearly childhood is getting murdered and brains being washed with the promise of a revolution that denies human rights and child rights. Neha Dixit for Headlines Today.
And joining me now for more on this huge story is Headlines Today's Neha Dixit, just back from this Maoist Badlands. Neha, you were caught in crossfire between the security forces and the Maoists. Tell our viewers what happened.
We had to go to the Chandragunda forest to go to the base of these training camps. But when we walked 40 kilometers up above the hills, the combing operation by greyhounds, that is the Andhra police, started, which is why we were caught in a crossfire. Me and the camera person got split, and for the rest of the 4.5 days, I was with a group of 6 Naxals. And finally, crossing all these forests, we reached the Saranda forest, which is on the Jharkhand-Orissa forest, where another training camp was going on for these children. So that's how we reached. And as soon as we reached the training camps, and while we were on our way back, the Jharkhand police started a combing operation. And the first thing they do when they start a combing operation is put the forest on fire. So it was very difficult for us to come back to the town.
Okay. Some of these children as young as 6, the weapon they hold is taller than them. So what kind of training are these kids given? This is the death of a childhood.
Exactly. Children between between the age group of 6 to 16 are present. So children who are as young as 6 and between 6 to 12, they are initially used as couriers. They are used as spies. So whoever enters the forest, they pass on the information to the Maoists, informing them about the local meetings that are happening in the villages by other politicians and things like that. As soon as the children cross the age of 12, they start getting training in arms. They start getting training how to use rifles like 303, and they also they learn how to use gelatin sticks and detonators or RDX cables. So apart from the trainings that they, apart from the like these, all of them, we must remember, are tribal children. They know how to use spears, bows and arrows. Apart from that, they are trained in using this kind of ammunition like rifles and RTX cables.
Okay, Neha, stay on with us. We will come back to you for more. The Prime Minister of the country has described these Maoists as the biggest threat to India's internal security, and not in the year 2011, but way back in 2004. The threat remains and is assuming bigger proportions. Up next, we'll get you conversation with some of these child warriors, how they became a part of a dreaded Naxal design. That's coming up on the other side of this short break. Stay with us.